I stood on my own front porch at 7:30 on a Tuesday evening, my key turning uselessly in a lock that no longer recognized it. The brass felt foreign against my fingertips, newer, shinier than the one I'd used for 23 years. Behind the door I could hear voices, laughter, my daughter's high-pitched giggle mixing with my son's deeper chuckle. They were home. They were inside my house, and I was locked out. Before we continue, please subscribe and hit that notification bell, and let us know where in the world you're watching from in the comments. Now back to my story. The November air bit through my cardigan as I knocked. Once, twice, 3 times, each rap growing harder against the wood. The laughter stopped. Footsteps approached, slow and deliberate, like someone walking toward an unwanted solicitor. The door opened 6 inches, held by a chain I'd never seen before. My son's face appeared in the gap. Thomas, 28 years old, beard neatly trimmed, eyes that used to light up when I came home now flat and guarded. "Mom," he said, not a greeting, a statement of fact. "My key doesn't work." I held it up, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's going on?" He glanced over his shoulder. I heard my daughter's voice from deeper in the house. "Is it her?" "Her. Not Mom. Her." Thomas turned back to me, and something in his expression made my stomach drop. It was the look you give a stranger when you're about to deliver bad news. "We changed the locks," he said simply. I waited for more, an explanation, an apology, something. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. "Why?" The word came out smaller than I intended. "We need our privacy, Mom, Sarah and I. We're adults now. We can't have you just walking in whenever you want." I felt my mouth open, close, open again. "Walking in? Thomas, I live here. This is my house." "Technically," he said, and that word landed like a slap. "It's been our house too for the past few years. We pay rent, we contribute, we deserve boundaries." Behind him, Sarah appeared, my daughter, 26, with my same dark hair but none of my softness. She'd grown sharp edges somewhere along the way, and I'd been too close to notice when. "She doesn't understand, Tommy." Sarah's voice carried that particular condescension I'd heard more and more lately, the tone that said I was old, out of touch, unreasonable. "I was gone for 4 days," I said, hearing my voice rise despite my best efforts. "I went to visit Aunt Claire. She just had surgery. I told you both I'd be back tonight. And we're telling you that things need to change." Sarah crossed her arms. "We're not teenagers anymore. We need space." "Space." I repeated the word like it was foreign. "In my house." "Our house," Thomas corrected. "We've been helping with bills for 2 years now. $300 a month, each of them. $600 total against a $1,500 mortgage I'd been paying alone for 5 years before they moved back in, not to mention utilities, property taxes, insurance, groceries, the new roof I'd put on last spring. But I didn't say that. I'd never been good at throwing their contributions back in their faces. "So what am I supposed to do?" I asked quietly. "Stand out here?" They exchanged a look, some silent communication that excluded me entirely. "We'll get you a key," Thomas said, "tomorrow. But from now on, you need to knock. Text first, if you can. We need to know you're coming." "To my own house." "To our house," Sarah said firmly. "That's the new rule. You don't get to just invade our space anymore." Invade. The word struck something deep in my chest. I thought about all the years I'd spent building this space. The nursery I'd painted yellow because I didn't want to know if I was having a boy or girl. The kitchen floor I'd installed myself when money was tight. The garden I'd planted so they'd have fresh vegetables. The second mortgage I'd taken when Thomas needed help with college debt. "I need to get my things," I said, trying a different approach. "At least let me get some clothes." Sarah shook her head. "It's late, Mom. You're obviously upset. Why don't you stay with Aunt Claire tonight, or get a hotel? We'll meet you for coffee tomorrow and talk this through like adults." "I don't want coffee. I want to come inside. And we want you to respect our boundaries." Thomas's hand was already on the door. "This is happening, Mom. We've talked about it, and we agree. This is what needs to happen. We're not kids you can control anymore. I never tried to control, but the door was closing. I lunged forward, my hand hitting the wood with a dull thump. The chain rattled, held. Through the gap that remained, I saw my daughter's face, calm and unmoved. "Good night, Mom," she said softly. "We'll call you tomorrow." Then the door shut completely. I heard the new lock click into place. Final. Absolute. I stood there as the porch light flicked off, leaving me in darkness. Inside, their voices resumed, not arguing, not upset, just talking. Normal conversation, like they hadn't just locked their mother out of her own home. My hands were shaking as I walked back to my car. The overnight bag I'd packed for Aunt Claire's was still in the trunk. 4 days' worth of clothes that would have to last me until tomorrow. Until my children decided I was allowed back into the house. I'd sacrificed everything to keep. I sat in the driver's seat, key in the ignition, going nowhere. The house looked warm and inviting through my windshield. Lights on in the living room. I could see shadows moving past the windows. My children, my babies. The ones I'd nursed through fevers and nightmares, driven to soccer practice and band concerts, held when their hearts broke, celebrated when they succeeded. And they'd changed my locks. I was 63 years old. I'd been a widow for 5 years, a mother for 28, a homeowner for 23. I'd survived my husband's death, raised 2 kids alone, worked double shifts when necessary, never asked for help I didn't desperately need, and I was locked out. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Sorry, Mom, but you'll understand eventually. This is healthy for all of us. Love you. Love you." 2 words that used to mean something, that used to come with open doors and open arms. Now they came with new locks and chains and boundaries I'd apparently crossed without knowing. I started the car. The hotel on Route 9 had a sign that advertised vacancy. I'd driven past it 1,000 times, never imagining I'd need it, never imagining my own children would make me need it. As I pulled away from the curb, I looked back one more time. The house stood solid and familiar, every brick and window a memory. But it wasn't mine anymore. Not really. They'd made that clear. What I didn't know, what none of us knew that night, was that I wouldn't be fighting to get back in. In 3 weeks, they'd be begging me to return. But by then, it would be too late. The hotel room smelled like industrial cleaner and other people's lives. I sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing my coat, my overnight bag unopened at my feet. The digital clock on the nightstand blinked 8:47 p.m. in harsh red numbers. I should call someone. Aunt Claire, maybe. But what would I say? That my children had locked me out? She'd want to help, would probably offer to let me stay with her, but she was still recovering from her gallbladder surgery. She didn't need my problems on top of her own pain. My sister Linda? She'd say, "I told you so." She'd been warning me for months that I was letting Thomas and Sarah take advantage of me. "You're not their mother anymore," she'd said during our last phone call. "You're their landlord, their maid, their ATM. When are you going to wake up?" I'd defended them. Of course I had. They were going through transitions. The economy was tough for young people. They needed support while they got on their feet. That's what mothers did. But mothers were also supposed to have keys to their own homes. My phone rang. Thomas. I stared at his name on the screen, felt my thumb hover over the answer button, then sent it to voicemail. 30 seconds later, a text. "Mom, please don't be dramatic. We can talk tomorrow." Dramatic. I looked around the beige hotel room with its generic artwork and thin towels. I'd been locked out of my house, and I was being dramatic. Another text from Sarah. "This is actually really manipulative, giving us the silent treatment. We're trying to establish healthy boundaries, and you're acting like we committed some crime." I read the message 3 times, trying to find my footing in this new reality where I was the villain, where wanting access to my own home made me manipulative, where asking my children to respect their mother made me controlling. My finger hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to text back, to explain, to defend myself. But what was the point? They'd made their decision, changed their locks, drew their line. I set the phone face down on the nightstand and finally opened my bag. 4 days' worth of clothes. 1 toiletry case, the mystery novel I'd been reading at Aunt Claire's. Not enough to build a life on, but enough to survive a night. The shower was too hot and then too cold, the water pressure weak and inconsistent. I stood under it anyway, letting it run over me, washing away the drive and the shock and the humiliation. When I closed my eyes, I saw Thomas's face in that 6-inch gap. Not angry, not even apologetic, just done. Like he'd been waiting for the right moment to do this, and my trip to Aunt Claire's had provided the perfect opportunity. Had they planned this? Discussed it while I was gone? Maybe even celebrated their new freedom once the locks were changed? I thought about the house as I'd left it 4 days ago. Dishes in the sink, Sarah's cereal bowl, Thomas's coffee mug, laundry in the hamper, their clothes mixed with mine. The refrigerator stocked with groceries I'd bought, the bills on the counter, my checkbook beside them, ready to be paid like I did every month. Had they even noticed I did those things? Or had I become invisible in my own home, just a ghost who cleaned and paid and existed in the background of their lives? I turned off the water and wrapped myself in a towel that was too small and too rough. The mirror was fogged, obscuring my reflection. Maybe that was better. I wasn't sure I wanted to see myself right now, 63 years old and homeless. Well, not homeless, just displaced, temporary. Until tomorrow, when they'd graciously return my access to the house I owned. My phone lit up again. Another text. I didn't look at it. I climbed into the hotel bed, pulled the covers up to my chin, and stared at the ceiling. Water stains formed patterns in the acoustic tiles. I traced them with my eyes, looking for shapes, meanings, answers that wouldn't come. Tomorrow I'd meet them for coffee. Tomorrow I'd try to understand how we'd gotten here. Tomorrow I'd figure out what came next. But tonight, I just lay in the dark and tried to remember when my children had stopped feeling like mine. Sleep came in fragments. I'd doze for an hour, wake to check my phone, see more messages I didn't read, then drift off again. By 5 a.m., I gave up and made the hotel's terrible coffee in the single-serve machine that sputtered and hissed like it was angry about being used. I had 3 missed calls from Thomas, 5 texts from Sarah, and 1 voicemail I didn't listen to. Their messages had evolved from defensive to concerned to irritated. The latest, from Sarah at midnight. "You're really going to do this? Ignore us like a child? We're trying to have an adult conversation and you're throwing a tantrum." A tantrum. I set the phone down carefully, afraid of what I might do if I held it any longer. The coffee was bitter and weak. I drank it anyway, sitting in the room's single chair, watching dawn break through the gap in the curtains. Gray light, gray sky, gray mood. Everything felt muted and wrong, like I'd woken up in someone else's life. My phone buzzed. "Thomas, coffee at 9? The cafe on Main Street?" I typed back. "Fine." His response came immediately. "Good. We need to clear this up. You're being unreasonable." Unreasonable. The word followed me into the shower, into my clothes, into the car as I drove aimlessly until it was time to meet them. Unreasonable for expecting access to my house. Unreasonable for being hurt. Unreasonable for existing in a way that inconvenienced them. The cafe was busy with the morning rush. I spotted them immediately at a corner table, heads together, deep in conversation. They looked up when I approached, and I saw it again, that unified front, them against me. "Mom," Thomas stood, gestured to the empty chair. "Thanks for coming." Like I was doing them a favor, like this was a business meeting and not a confrontation about them locking me out of my own home. I sat. The chair wobbled. Everything felt unsteady. Sarah pushed a latte across the table. "We got you your usual. Oat milk, no sugar. A peace offering. Or maybe just habit. Either way, I didn't touch it." "So," Thomas began, his tone carefully moderated, like he'd practiced this. "We want to explain our position. You locked me out." My voice was flat. What position could possibly justify that? "See, this is the problem." Sarah leaned forward. "You're already being defensive. You're not even trying to understand where we're coming from." I felt something shift in my chest, a familiar sensation, the urge to apologize, to smooth things over, to make them comfortable even when I was the one hurting. I'd been doing it for so long it was almost automatic. Almost. "Then explain it to me," I said instead. "Make me understand why changing the locks was necessary." They exchanged another look, that silent communication that excluded me. "It's not just about the locks," Thomas said carefully. "It's about boundaries, respect. The fact that you still treat us like children. I treat you like my children because you are my children. We're adults." Sarah's voice rose slightly. "We have jobs, we pay rent, we have our own lives. But you still do our laundry without asking. You go through our mail, you comment on everything we eat, who we date, how we spend our time." "I don't go through your mail," I interrupted. "It gets delivered to the house. I put it on the table. You open packages that aren't addressed to you." "Once, I opened one package because it was sitting on the porch in the rain, and I didn't want it to get damaged. It had Thomas's name on it, but no return address. I thought it might be important. You went into my room while I was at work. Thomas's jaw was tight. You straightened up. That's a violation of privacy, Mom," I thought back. 2 weeks ago, I'd noticed his door was open, saw clothes on the floor, made his bed, picked up a few things. Mothering. That's all it was. I was trying to help. We didn't ask for help. Sarah's hands were wrapped around her coffee cup. "That's the point. You don't ask, you just do. You insert yourself into our lives and then act hurt when we try to establish boundaries." "Boundaries," I repeated. The word was starting to feel like a weapon. "Is that what you call locking me out?" "We call it taking control of our living situation." Thomas pulled out his phone, slid it across the table. On the screen was a document, typed, professional. "We've drawn up a roommate agreement. It outlines expectations, responsibilities, shared spaces versus private spaces. And yes, it includes a requirement that you notify us before entering the house." I stared at the phone, at my son's face, at this stranger who'd replaced the little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. "A roommate agreement," I said slowly. "For my house." "For our shared living space," Sarah corrected. "We think this will help us all coexist more peacefully." Coexist, like we were animals in a zoo, separated by necessary barriers. I picked up the phone, scrolled through the document. It was thorough, detailed. They'd put real time into this. Section 3, Private Spaces. Each resident is entitled to privacy in their designated bedroom. Entry without permission is prohibited. This includes cleaning, organizing, or retrieving items. Section 5, Guest Policy. All residents must notify housemates 24 hours in advance before having guests. This includes family members visiting from out of town. Section 7, Financial Obligations. Rent is due on the 1st of each month. Late fees will apply after the 5th. Utility costs will be split equally between all residents. Split equally. I did the math in my head. 3 ways would be $500 each for utilities that currently ran about $600 total. They'd be paying more. I'd be paying less. Was this supposed to feel like a gift? I kept scrolling. Section 12. House Rules. No entering other residents' rooms without permission. No touching other residents' food without asking. Quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. All residents must clean up after themselves immediately. No monitoring other residents' comings and goings. That last one struck me. Monitoring. I thought about the times I'd asked where they were going, when they'd be home. Mom things, safety things. Now reframed as surveillance. "You want me to sign this?" It wasn't a question. "We think it would help." Thomas tried to sound reasonable. "It's not personal, Mom. It's just structure, clear expectations, so nobody feels like their space is being invaded." There was that word again. Invaded. I set the phone down carefully, took a breath, another. "And if I don't sign it?" Silence, heavy and deliberate. "Mom," Sarah started. "If I don't agree to these terms in my own house, what happens?" That's not fair. Thomas's voice hardened. You're trying to make this into something it's not. We're offering a compromise. You locked me out, and now you're demanding I sign a contract to get back in. Where's the compromise? The compromise is that we're staying. Sarah's eyes were cold. We could leave, you know. Find our own place. Leave you here alone with all the bills. Is that what you want? And there it was. The threat I'd been dancing around for months, without acknowledging it. The power they held, the ability to walk away and leave me with a mortgage I could barely afford on my part-time salary. I'd gone back to work 3 years ago after the savings from Robert's life insurance started to run thin. 20 hours a week at the library. It wasn't much. But it was something. It wasn't enough to cover everything, though. Not comfortably. Thomas and Sarah's rent helped, more than helped. It kept me from having to sell the house, and they knew it. I looked at my children, really looked at them, and saw the calculation in their eyes. They'd done the math too. They knew I needed them more than they needed me. When had that happened? When had the balance shifted so completely? I need to think about this, I said quietly, standing up. Mom, sit down. We're not done. I need to think about this, I repeated, and walked away before they could see my hands shaking. Behind me, I heard Sarah's voice. This is exactly what I'm talking about. She's so dramatic. I kept walking, out of the cafe, into the parking lot, into my car. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe through the pressure in my chest. My phone buzzed. A text from Thomas. You left your coffee, and you didn't take the house key we had made for you. A house key, a privilege now, apparently. Something they could grant or withhold depending on my behavior. I started the car and drove, not to the hotel, not to the house, just drove, through neighborhoods I'd known for decades, past the elementary school where my kids had learned to read, the park where they'd played, the ice cream shop where we'd celebrated every good report card and lost tooth. Those kids were gone. The ones who'd loved me unconditionally, who'd needed me, who'd thought I hung the moon. In their place were these strangers with their roommate agreements and their boundaries and their casual cruelty. Or maybe they'd been there all along, and I'd been too blind to see them. My phone rang. Linda. My sister had perfect timing, or maybe just a sixth sense for when I was falling apart. Hey, I answered, trying to sound normal. What's wrong? So much for sounding normal. I told her everything. The locks, the hotel, the cafe, the agreement. She listened without interrupting, which meant it was bad. Linda always interrupted unless things were really, really bad. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Come stay with me, she finally said. Linda, I'm serious. Pack your stuff and come to Florida. Get away from this for a while. Clear your head. I can't just leave. I have work. I have the house. The house they locked you out of. The house where they're treating you like an unwanted tenant. Her voice was gentle but firm. Honey, listen to me. You need perspective. You're too close to this. Come down here for a week, 2 weeks, however long you need. I thought about it, about running away because that's what it would be. Running, avoiding, letting them win. But what was I winning if I stayed? I'll think about it, I said. Don't think too long. You deserve better than this, Caroline. You know that, right? Did I? I wasn't sure anymore. We said goodbye and I kept driving until I found myself pulling into the parking lot of my library. I wasn't scheduled to work until Thursday, but it was the only place I could think of that felt safe, quiet, mine. Margaret. No, not Margaret. I couldn't think of that name. Barbara was at the front desk and her face lit up when she saw me. Caroline, I thought you were still visiting your sister. Got back last night. I managed to smile. Just wanted to check if anything urgent came up. We chatted for a few minutes about nothing important. Book donations, the new display she was planning, minor library gossip. Normal things. Things that didn't hurt. When she excused herself to help a patron, I wandered into the stacks. Fiction. Mystery. The section I'd organized myself last month. I ran my fingers along the spines, remembering how satisfying it had been to create order from chaos, to make sense of something, if only life were as simple as alphabetizing. My phone buzzed again, another text from Sarah. "Seriously, Mom, you need to stop being so sensitive. We're all adults here. Act like it." I turned off my phone. I stayed in the library until Barbara gave me a concerned look and asked if everything was okay. I lied and said yes, then drove back to the hotel. My temporary home, my exile. In the room, I finally looked at all the messages I'd been ignoring. 17 texts, 6 calls, 2 voicemails, all from Thomas and Sarah, all variations of the same themes. I was overreacting. I was being childish. I needed to grow up and accept reality. Not one apology, not one acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, changing the locks was cruel. I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank statements. Numbers didn't lie. They couldn't gaslight me or rewrite history. They just were. Mortgage, $1,500 property tax, $350 month averaged insurance, $125 month utilities, $600 month, higher in winter. Groceries, $800 month. I'd been buying for 3. Maintenance, $200 month averaged total, $3,575 per month. My income, $1,800 month from the library. Their rent, $600 month combined. Shortfall, $1,275 month. I'd been making up the difference from Robert's life insurance, but that was almost gone. Another 6 months, maybe 8, and I'd be underwater. I'd been pretending everything was fine, that I could manage, that I didn't need to make changes. But the numbers didn't lie. I thought about Linda's offer, about leaving, about what would happen to the house if I did. Then I thought about something else. I opened a new browser tab and started researching tenant laws in our state. If Thomas and Sarah wanted to treat this like a landlord-tenant situation, I'd play by those rules. What I found was interesting, very interesting indeed. By the time I closed my laptop 2 hours later, I had a plan. Not revenge. I wasn't interested in revenge, but clarity, boundaries, like they'd said, just not the kind they were expecting. I texted Thomas, "I'll sign the agreement. Let's meet tomorrow to go over final details." His response was quick. "Great. See? This will be better for everyone." I didn't respond, just turned off the light and lay in the dark, thinking about numbers and laws and the difference between being a mother and being a doormat. Tomorrow things would change. They just didn't know how much. I met them at the house the next afternoon. My house, though it felt strange thinking of it that way now. Thomas opened the door with his key and let me in like a guest. The living room looked the same but different. They'd rearranged furniture, small changes but deliberate, claiming space, making it theirs. "We printed out the agreement," Sarah said, gesturing to the coffee table where papers sat next to a pen. "We made a few additions based on yesterday's conversation." I picked up the document. It had grown from 5 pages to 7. New sections on shared food labeling, bathroom schedules, parking space allocation. They'd thought of everything. "I have some additions too," I said calmly, pulling out my own papers. Thomas frowned. "What do you mean?" "Well, if we're doing this officially, if we're establishing a formal landlord-tenant relationship, then we need to do it properly." I spread my documents on the table. I'd been up until midnight drafting them, using templates I'd found online and adapting them to our situation. "This is a formal lease agreement," I explained. "It outlines the terms of your tenancy, including rent, security deposit, utilities, and maintenance responsibilities." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "We already discussed rent." "We discussed a casual arrangement. This formalizes it. The rent is now $1,200 per month for the 2 of you, plus half of all utilities. That's actually below market rate for this area." I checked. $1,200. Thomas's voice rose. "We've been paying $300 each." "You've been contributing $300 each to household expenses as adult children living at home, but you've made it clear you're not children anymore. You're tenants. So we'll operate under a standard lease." I watched their faces as they processed this, the calculation happening behind their eyes. "The lease is for 1 year, renewable annually. Security deposit is 1 month's rent, due within 30 days. You're responsible for any damages to your rooms beyond normal wear and tear. And yes, I'll need to conduct quarterly inspections to ensure the property is being maintained, with 24 hours notice, of course. You can't be serious. Sarah's voice was tight. I'm absolutely serious. You wanted boundaries and clear expectations. This provides them. I pulled out another document. I also took the liberty of having the house appraised. If you'd prefer to buy me out and take over the mortgage, the selling price would be $385,000. You could get a loan, assume the payments, and have complete control of your space. The room went very quiet. We don't have that kind of money, Thomas said finally. Then you'll be tenants, and tenants follow the lease. This is insane. Sarah stood up, pacing. You're our mother. I can't just what? Expect to be treated with basic respect? Expect not to be locked out of my own home? Expect not to be gaslit about having boundaries? I kept my voice level, but my heart was pounding. You wanted to treat this like a business arrangement. Fine. This is a business arrangement. The lease says you can evict us with 30 days' notice. Thomas was reading now, his face getting redder. Standard lease terms. Don't worry. I wouldn't exercise that unless you violated the lease, which includes, by the way, maintaining the property, paying rent on time, and not changing locks without the landlord's permission. They stared at me like I'd grown a second head. I'm also implementing some immediate changes, I continued, pulling out a list I'd made. I'll no longer be buying groceries for the household. You'll purchase your own food. I'll no longer be doing communal laundry. You're adults. You can handle your own. The cleaning service I've been paying for out of pocket will be discontinued. We'll rotate household cleaning duties per this schedule. I handed them the chore chart I'd created. And finally, I'll be converting the garage into a separate living space for myself. I've already contacted a contractor. It'll take about 6 weeks. During that time, I'll be staying with my sister in Florida. You're leaving? Sarah's voice cracked. You're just leaving. I'm giving us all some space. When I return, I'll have my own entrance, my own kitchen, my own living area. You'll have the main house, the privacy you wanted. I'll have mine. This is ridiculous. Thomas was on his feet now. You're overreacting to, am I? I looked at him directly. Tell me, Thomas, if a landlord locked you out of your apartment, how would you react? If they told you that you were being dramatic for being upset about it, what would you do? He opened his mouth, closed it. You wanted adult relationships. Adults pay their way. Adults respect property rights. Adults sign leases and follow them. I gathered my papers. The lease takes effect in 1 week. That gives you time to review it, ask questions, or find alternative housing if you prefer. I'll need your decision by Monday. And if we don't agree? Sarah's arms were crossed defensively. Then I'll begin formal eviction proceedings, which I really don't want to do. You're my children, and I love you, but I won't be disrespected in my own home anymore. I stood to leave, then paused. Oh, and I changed the locks. Again. Your keys are on the counter. Please remember to text before coming over. Boundaries, right? I walked out before they could respond, my legs shaking but my head clear. Behind me, I heard raised voices, arguing, panic. It should have felt satisfying. Instead, it just felt necessary. Like chemotherapy, poison to kill the disease, harsh but essential. I drove straight to Linda's, 12 hours on the road, stopping only for gas and coffee. I called her from a rest stop in Virginia to let her know I was coming. About damn time, she said. When I finally pulled into her driveway at 3 a.m., she was waiting on the porch in her bathrobe, a glass of wine in each hand. Welcome to Florida, she said, handing me a glass. Now tell me everything. And I did. Linda's house smelled like citrus and coffee and safety. She set me up in her guest room, her actual guest room, not a hotel, not a converted garage, and for the first time in days, I slept more than 3 hours straight. When I woke up, it was past noon. Sunlight streamed through the windows, warm and yellow and nothing like the gray November sky I'd left behind. I could hear Linda humming in the kitchen, the sound of something sizzling on the stove. My phone had 37 notifications. I turned it face down without looking. "Smart girl," Linda said when I emerged. She slid a plate of eggs and toast across her kitchen island. "Let them stew. They're probably panicking." "Good, they should be." She poured me coffee, fixed it the way I liked without asking. Sisters remembered these things. "So what's the actual plan here? You converting the garage for real?" "Already put down the deposit with the contractor yesterday before I left. He starts next week." I picked at my eggs. "It's not ideal, but it gives me independence, my own space. They can have the house. And the rent? If they pay it, great. If they don't, I have grounds for eviction." Linda studied me over her coffee mug. "You know they're not going to pay $1,200 a month." "I know. So you're forcing them out." I thought about that. Was I? Maybe. Probably. "I'm forcing them to make adult decisions," I said finally. They wanted to be treated like adults. Adults pay market rent or they move. And if they call your bluff? If they just leave? That was the question that had kept me up during the drive. If they left, I couldn't afford the house. I'd have to sell it, start over somewhere smaller, cheaper. Everything I'd built, everything Robert and I had worked for, gone. But maybe that was okay. Maybe it was time. "Then they leave," I said quietly. "And I figure it out." Linda reached across and squeezed my hand. "Proud of you." We spent the day doing nothing important. Walked on the beach, got lunch at a small cafe where nobody knew me and nobody needed anything from me. Watched the sunset from Linda's back porch with wine and cheese and easy conversation. My phone kept buzzing. I kept ignoring it. That night, Linda and I sat outside under the stars listening to the ocean. "You want to know what I think?" she asked. "Do I have a choice?" She smiled. "I think you've been setting yourself on fire to keep them warm for so long, you forgot what it feels like to not be burning." I turned that over in my mind. "That's very poetic." "I have my moments." She refilled my wine. "But seriously, when's the last time you did something just for you? Not for the kids, not for Robert's memory, not for the house. Just you." I couldn't remember. Even the library job had been about structure, about feeling useful, about having something to do after the kids moved back in and I realized I'd become obsolete in my own home. "Exactly," Linda said, reading my silence. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay here as long as you need. You're going to sleep in, read trash novels, eat too much seafood, and remember who the hell you are besides someone's mother. And my kids? Your kids are adults. Let them adult. If they sink, that's on them. You've given enough." That night, before bed, I finally looked at my phone. The messages had evolved from demanding to concerned, to angry to desperate. "Thomas, Mom, we need to talk about this. This is insane. You can't just leave, call me back. Seriously, call me back." "Fine, be that way." "Mom, please, we didn't mean to hurt you. Can we just talk about this like adults? You're being really unfair. Do you have any idea how much stress you're causing us? I can't believe you're doing this." That last one made me laugh, a bitter, hollow sound. I was causing them stress. Me, the one they'd locked out. I typed a single response to both of them. "The lease stands. You have until Monday to decide. Enjoy your privacy." Then I muted their notifications and went to bed. The days in Florida blurred together in the best way. Linda took me to art galleries and farmers markets. We watched old movies and cooked elaborate dinners and talked about everything except my kids. She introduced me to her book club, women my age who'd lived full lives and had stories that didn't revolve around their children. I started to remember things, that I liked mystery novels more than romance, that I was good at watercolor painting, something I hadn't done since before Thomas was born, that I enjoyed quiet mornings with just coffee and my thoughts. Monday came and went. No response from Thomas or Sarah about the lease. Wednesday, I got a text from Thomas. "We're not signing that ridiculous lease. This is still your problem to figure out." I showed it to Linda. "Give them 30 days notice," she said immediately. "Linda, no. No more waffling. They made their choice. You made yours. Follow through. She was right. I drafted the eviction notice that night, had it reviewed by a lawyer Linda recommended, and emailed it to them Thursday morning with a PDF copy sent via certified mail. This serves as official notice that your tenancy will terminate in 30 days, effective December 20th. You are required to vacate the premises and return all keys by 5 p.m. on said date. Failure to comply will result in formal eviction proceedings. Thomas called immediately. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Mom, what the hell? You can't evict us. We're your kids. This is our home. Call me back right now and stop this nonsense. Our home. After they'd locked me out. After they'd demanded I text before entering. After they'd called me invasive and controlling and dramatic. I didn't call back. Sarah tried a different approach. A long text about how hurt she was, how betrayed she felt, how she couldn't believe I was choosing revenge over family, how they'd always been there for me, and this was how I repaid them. Always been there for me. I thought about the months after Robert died when they'd both been too busy to visit, about the holidays I'd spent alone while they chose friends over family, about the casual way they'd consumed my time and money and energy without ever asking if I had enough to give. I blocked them both. Linda found me crying in the guest room that night. Second thoughts, she asked gently. Third, fourth, millionth. I wiped my eyes. What kind of mother kicks out her kids? The kind whose kids forgot she was human. Linda sat beside me. You're allowed to have limits, Caroline. You're allowed to say enough. But what if I'm wrong? What if I'm the one being unreasonable? Are you? Really? She turned to face me. Let me ask you something. If a friend came to you and told you their kids had locked them out, demanded they sign away basic respect, and threatened to leave them financially ruined if they didn't comply, what would you tell that friend? I knew the answer. Of course I knew. I'd tell them to run. Exactly. Linda squeezed my shoulder. So run. Or in this case, stay right here and let them figure their own shit out. The certified mail came back signed on December 1st. They'd received the eviction notice. No response, no contact, just silence. I tried not to think about what they were planning, whether they were packing, whether they were even taking it seriously. December 10th, my contractor called. The garage conversion was ahead of schedule. He could have it finished by the 18th if I wanted to come back early to do the final walkthrough. I almost said no, almost told him to take his time, that I wasn't ready. But Linda was already booking my flight. You're not running anymore, she said firmly. You're going home, to your home. And if they're still there on the 20th, you call the police and have them removed. I can't. You can. You will. Because you deserve better than this, and it's time you started believing it. I flew back on December 17th. Linda wanted to come with me, but I told her I needed to do this alone. She made me promise to call every day and to get a hotel if things got ugly. The house looked the same from the outside. Christmas decorations that I hadn't put up strung across the porch. Sarah's car in the driveway, lights on in the living room. I sat in my rental car for 10 minutes gathering courage. Then I used my key to my house, and went inside. The smell hit me first. Garbage, spoiled food, unwashed dishes. The living room was a disaster. Pizza boxes stacked on the coffee table, clothes draped over furniture, cups and plates everywhere. The kitchen was worse. The sink overflowing with dishes, trash bag torn and leaking on the floor, the refrigerator door hanging open, contents spoiled and rotting. Hello? I called out. Sarah appeared from upstairs, and I barely recognized her. She looked thin, exhausted, her hair unwashed, dark circles under her eyes. Mom, her voice cracked. You're back. What happened here? She looked around like she was seeing the mess for the first time. We've been busy with work and stuff. Where's Thomas? His room. She wrapped her arms around herself. We've been fighting about what to do. I walked upstairs, Sarah trailing behind me. Thomas's door was closed. I knocked, then entered without waiting. He was on his bed, laptop open, surrounded by papers. He looked up when I came in, and I saw the same exhaustion in his face. But also something else. Fear. "The eviction notice stands," I said before he could speak. "You have 3 days to vacate." "Mom, please," Sarah started. "No." I kept my voice steady. "You made your choice when you changed the locks, when you called me manipulative for being hurt, when you demanded I sign your roommate agreement in my own house. You wanted adult relationships with adult boundaries. This is what that looks like." "We didn't think you'd actually go through with it," Thomas said quietly. "Why? Because I've never enforced consequences before? Because I've spent your whole lives putting your comfort above my own dignity?" I looked between them. "That ends now. You have 3 days. If you're not out by 5 p.m. on the 20th, I will have the sheriff remove you." I turned to leave, then paused. "The garage apartment is finished. I'll be staying there. The main house is being listed for sale after the 1st of the year. Whatever happens with that money is my business, not yours." Sarah's face crumpled. "You're selling? But this is our home." "No," I interrupted. "It was my home, mine and your father's. You made it very clear it was never really yours. You just occupied it." I left before I could see her cry, before I could weaken. I grabbed my overnight bag from the car and walked around to the garage. The contractor had done beautiful work. It was small, just a studio, really, but it was mine. Kitchenette, bathroom, living space, sleeping area, clean and new and untouched by years of accumulated resentment. I unpacked my bag and sat on the new couch, listening to the muffled sounds of my children in the main house. Footsteps. Voices. Eventually, crying. I didn't go to them. I'd spent 28 years going to them, running to soothe every hurt, fix every problem, absorb every consequence of their choices. Not anymore. I called Linda, told her I was safe, that the apartment was perfect, that I was okay. "And them?" she asked. "They have 3 days." Good girl. That night I heard them moving around. Packing, maybe. Planning. I didn't check, didn't ask. Just lay in my new bed in my new space and tried to sleep. December 18th. 2 days left. I woke to someone knocking on the garage door, persistent, demanding. Thomas stood outside, still in yesterday's clothes. "We need to talk." "We've talked. You have your notice." "Mom, please, just listen." He looked desperate. "We can't find a place. Everything requires first month, last month. Security deposit. We don't have that kind of money saved. You've been paying $300 a month in rent. Where did the rest of your salary go?" He looked away. "Expenses. Life. You didn't think you'd ever have to actually support yourselves." I finished for him. "That's not my problem." "So what? We're just supposed to be homeless?" "You're supposed to figure it out. Ask friends, get a loan, find a cheaper place, do what millions of other adults do when they can't afford their current housing. This is different. We're your kids." "Then maybe you should have acted like it when you locked me out." Sarah appeared behind him. She'd been crying. "Mom, I'm sorry, okay? I'm really, really sorry. We were wrong. We were awful. We know that now. Please don't do this." I wanted to cave. God, I wanted to. Every maternal instinct in my body screamed at me to fix this, to save them, to make it okay. But I thought about the hotel room, about the locks I couldn't open, about being called dramatic and manipulative and invasive for existing. "I accept your apology," I said quietly. "But the eviction stands. You can be sorry and still face consequences." "That's not fair," Thomas's voice rose. "We said we're sorry." "Fair? You want to talk about fair?" Something in me snapped. "Was it fair when you locked me out? When you made me sleep in a hotel? When you gaslit me for being upset? When you told me I was the problem for not accepting your boundaries?" "We didn't mean—" "Yes, you did. You meant every word. You just didn't think there would be consequences." I stepped back, preparing to close the door. "You have 2 days. Use them." I shut the door on their protests, locked it, heard them arguing outside, then eventually leaving. Through my window, I watched them go back to the main house, saw lights go on in their rooms, heard more arguing, muffled by walls and distance. My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. Mrs. Caroline Henderson, this is Diane from Property Management Solutions. Your son Thomas contacted us about renting one of our units. We require landlord references. He listed you? Of course he did. Thomas and his sister Sarah are currently being evicted from my property for failure to comply with lease terms. They have 2 days to vacate. I would not recommend them as tenants. Silence on the other end. Then, I see. Thank you for your honesty. She hung up. 2 minutes later, Thomas was banging on my door again. You sabotaged us. That apartment would have been perfect. I opened the door. I told the truth. You are being evicted. That's a fact. What they choose to do with that information is up to them. You're destroying our lives. I'm letting you experience the natural consequences of your choices. There's a difference. What is wrong with you? Sarah appeared again. When did you become so cruel? Cruel. After everything, I was cruel. I became cruel, I said slowly. When being kind meant letting you walk all over me. When being a good mother meant accepting disrespect. When loving you meant having no boundaries of my own. We needed tough love or whatever. Fine. You've made your point. Sarah was crying again. We get it. We were wrong. Now let us stay. No. Just that. Just no. No explanation, no softening, no compromise. We're your children, Thomas said, and his voice broke. Doesn't that mean anything? It means I raised you to be independent adults. It means I gave you every advantage I could. It means I loved you enough to sacrifice my own happiness for years. I met his eyes. And it means I love you enough now to let you learn what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. I closed the door again. This time, they didn't knock. December 19th, 1 day left. I heard them loading a U-Haul truck at dawn, back and forth, furniture, boxes. The sounds of a hasty, desperate move. I didn't help, didn't offer, didn't even look. By noon, the truck was full. I watched from my window as they made their final trips. Sarah carried out a box of photos, family pictures, her baby books, things I'd saved for her. Thomas grabbed his guitar, his computer, his expensive coffee maker. They loaded it all up. Then they stood in the driveway, looking at the house, at my garage apartment, waiting maybe for me to come out, to stop them, to save them. I didn't. The truck pulled away at 2:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the deadline. I waited an hour, then walked to the main house with the key they'd left on the counter. The damage was worse than I'd thought. Holes in the walls from removed shelves, stains on the carpet. The bathroom shower cracked. Thomas's room had been painted black. When had that happened? Sarah's closet door hung off its hinges. It would cost thousands to repair. Money I didn't have. But it was quiet, and it was mine. I spent the rest of the day cleaning, not thinking, just cleaning. Garbage bags filled with their abandoned trash. Dishes washed, floors swept. Windows opened to air out the smell of neglect. By midnight, the house looked almost normal. Empty, but normal. I went back to my garage apartment and collapsed on the couch. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hope you're happy. We're staying with friends, sleeping on couches. But I guess that doesn't matter to you. Sarah. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, I hope you find a place soon. I love you both. I didn't add anything else. Didn't apologize, didn't offer to help. Just sent it and turned off my phone. Christmas came and went. I spent it with Linda, who flew up despite my protests. We had dinner in the garage apartment. Salmon and roasted vegetables. Nothing fancy. We watched old movies and didn't talk about my kids. On New Year's Eve, the realtor came to photograph the house. She'd advised waiting until the repairs were done, but I couldn't afford to wait. It would sell as is or not at all. It's a buyer's market, she warned. You might not get what you're hoping for. I just need enough to pay off the mortgage and start fresh somewhere smaller. She nodded like she'd heard this story before. Probably had. The listing went live January 3rd. I got 2 showings in the first week. Both walked away after seeing the damage in the bedrooms. I started looking at apartments, small ones, cheap ones, places I could afford on my library salary alone. It was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. January 15th, I got an email from Thomas, the first contact since they'd moved out. Mom, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know we screwed up, really screwed up. Sarah and I have been talking a lot, and we're starting to understand what we did, how we treated you. We're living in a shitty apartment now. 2 bedrooms split between 4 people. We pay $800 each, and it's still not enough to cover rent and bills and food. We fight with our roommates about dishes and noise and space, and I keep thinking about how you never complained when we did the same things. I get it now, what you were trying to teach us. We weren't ready to be independent. We thought we were adults, but we were just kids playing house with your money and your patience. I don't expect you to forgive us. I don't expect you to let us come back. I just wanted you to know that we understand now. We really do. I'm sorry, Mom, for all of it. Thomas. I read it 3 times, cried twice, then saved it to a folder and didn't respond. Not because I didn't want to. Because I didn't trust myself not to fix it, to save them, to slip back into old patterns. February brought a serious offer on the house, below asking but enough. Enough to clear the mortgage, pay for repairs I'd never make, and give me a small cushion while I figured out what came next. I accepted. Closing was scheduled for March 15th. I started packing. Not much to pack, really. Most of the furniture had been Robert's, was worn and outdated anyway. I'd take my clothes, my books, my mother's china. Start fresh. Linda called every week. Any word from the kids? Thomas emails sometimes. Updates. He got a promotion. They moved to a better apartment. Sarah's seeing someone serious. And you? I'm okay. And I was. Not happy exactly, but okay. Stable. Free. March 10th, 5 days before closing, someone knocked on my garage door. Sarah stood outside, alone. She looked different, thinner, older, tired in a way I'd never seen before. Can I come in? I hesitated, then stepped aside. She looked around the small space. It's nice. The apartment. It suits me. I heard you sold the house. News travels fast. Thomas told me. He saw the sold sign. She twisted her hands together. Mom, I came to ask you something, and you can say no. You probably should say no. But I have to ask. I waited. Can I come with you? Wherever you're going? The words came out in a rush. I'll pay rent. Real rent. Market rate. I'll sign a real lease. I'll respect your boundaries. I can't do this anymore. The roommates, the fighting, never having enough money. Thomas has his promotion, but I'm still barely making it, and I'm so tired, Mom. I'm so tired. I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. Saw the desperation, yes, but also something else. Something that might have been growth. Why should I trust you? She flinched. You shouldn't. I know you shouldn't. We were horrible to you. We took advantage. We didn't appreciate anything until it was gone. Tears started falling. But I've learned, Mom. I really have. These past 3 months have been hell, and I deserved every second of it. And if I say yes, if I let you live with me again, how do I know you won't fall back into old patterns? You don't. I can't promise I won't screw up, but I can promise I'll try, really try. And if I mess up, you can kick me out. No discussion, no argument, just gone. She wiped her eyes. Please, Mom. I know I don't deserve it, but please. Every instinct screamed at me to say yes, to gather her up, tell her it was okay. Let her come home. But I thought about the locks, about the hotel, about the months of disrespect disguised as boundaries. I need to think about it, I said finally. Okay, she nodded, trying to smile. That's fair. That's more than fair. I'll let you know before closing. She left, and I sat in my apartment for hours, thinking. Linda's voice in my head, you've given enough, but also Robert's voice from years ago. There are kids. We don't give up on them. And my own voice, new and unfamiliar. But when do I get to matter? I called Linda. What does your gut say? She asked. My gut says she's genuine, that she really has learned. But my gut also said they'd never lock me out, so what do I know? Fair point. Linda was quiet for a moment. What do you want, Caroline? Not what's best for Sarah. What do you want? I thought about that. Really thought. I want to not be afraid anymore, I said finally. I want to live without worrying when the next betrayal is coming. I want peace. Can you have that with her there? I don't know. Then that's your answer. March 14th, the day before closing, I called Sarah. I've thought about your request, I said when she answered. And I could hear the hope and fear warring in her voice. My answer is no. Silence. Then a sob. But, I continued, I'm willing to help you find your own place. I'll co-sign a lease, help with the security deposit, give you furniture I'm not taking, but you need to stand on your own feet, Sarah, for both our sakes. That's, her voice broke, that's more than I deserve. Probably. But I'm your mother. I can't help wanting to help you. I just can't sacrifice myself to do it anymore. I understand. She was crying, but it sounded like relief. Thank you, Mom. Really, thank you. We found her a studio apartment 2 towns over, small but decent. I co-signed, gave her my old couch and dishes and bed frame, helped her move in. When everything was unloaded, she hugged me, really hugged me, like she used to when she was small. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. Are we going to be okay? I thought about that, about trust and boundaries and new beginnings. I think so, I said. Eventually. I moved to a 1-bedroom apartment in a complex for seniors. Small, quiet, affordable on my library salary with some left over from the house sale. Thomas called on moving day. I heard you helped Sarah get set up. I did. That was good of you. Better than we deserved. Probably. Silence. Then, think you'd help me too. Not with an apartment. I'm managing okay, but I'd like to, I don't know, see you, talk, if you're open to it. Coffee, I said. Once a month. We can try that. I'll take it. We met for coffee in April. It was awkward, stilted. We talked about surface things. His job, my apartment, the weather. Didn't mention the house or the locks or any of it. But we talked. May's coffee was easier. June's almost felt normal. By July, I could see them both without my stomach clenching, could answer their calls without dread, could even laugh at their jokes. They'd never live with me again. I'd made that clear. But we were building something new, something with boundaries, respect, actual adult relationships instead of the codependent mess we'd had before. Linda visited in August. We sat on my small balcony with wine and takeout. You look good, she said. I feel good. And I did. Lighter, freer, mine. Any regrets? I thought about that. About the house I'd lost, the money I'd spent, the relationship with my kids that would never be the same. No, I said finally. I regret how it happened, but not where I ended up. That's growth, sister. We clinked glasses. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Found a new recipe and thought of you. Want to come over for dinner Sunday? Then Thomas. Sarah's cooking. We should probably have paramedics on standby. You in? I smiled. They're inviting me to dinner. You going? Yeah. I think I am. Because that's the thing about boundaries. They don't mean building walls. They mean building gates, places you can open and close as needed, letting people in on your terms instead of theirs. My children had to lose me to find me, had to lose the house to appreciate what I'd given them, had to sleep on couches and fight with roommates and struggle with bills to understand what I'd protected them from, and I had to lose them, or at least lose the version of them I'd been clinging to find myself. We'd never be what we were, that mother who gave everything, those children who took without thinking. Those people were gone, but maybe these new people, me with my boundaries, them with their hard-won gratitude, maybe we could build something better, something real, something where nobody had to change the locks because everybody already had a key. It's September now, a year since I stood locked out on my own porch, a year since everything fell apart. Thomas got engaged. Sarah got a promotion. I got a cat. We have dinner every other Sunday, sometimes at Sarah's place, sometimes at Thomas's, sometimes at mine. We split the bill. We respect each other's time. We ask before assuming. It's not perfect. Sarah still sometimes forgets I have my own life, calls at inconvenient times, expects me to drop everything. Thomas still sometimes treats me like I'm fragile, like I might break if he's too honest. But we're learning, all of us. Last Sunday, they showed up at my apartment with a gift. Early birthday present, they said. I opened it carefully. Inside was a keychain. Simple, silver, with 3 keys attached. What's this? My apartment key, Sarah said. Mine too, Thomas added. So you can come over whenever you want. No texting required. Because you're our mom, and you should never have to ask permission for that. I looked at the keys, then at my children. Saw the apology in their eyes, the growth, the genuine regret. Thank you, I said quietly. We're sorry, Sarah said, for all of it, for making you feel unwelcome, for taking you for granted, for not seeing what we had until it was gone. We were shit kids, Thomas said bluntly, but we're trying to be better, if you'll let us. I pulled them both into a hug, my babies, my adults, my complicated, flawed, growing children. I'll let you, I said, because that's what mothers do. We forgive. We give second chances. We love fiercely even when it hurts. But we also, and this is important, we also remember. I keep those keys on my keychain, right next to the key to my apartment, the one I don't have to ask permission to enter, the one that's mine. Sometimes I look at them and remember the locks that didn't work, the doors that wouldn't open, the night I spent in a hotel because my own children made me homeless. And sometimes, more often now, I look at them and see possibility, repair, the slow, hard work of rebuilding trust. My children changed the locks and learned why that was a mistake. The mistake wasn't just the locks. It was forgetting that love isn't infinite, that patience runs out, that even mothers have breaking points. They found that out the hard way, but they found it. And in the breaking and rebuilding, we all found something else, ourselves, me, as more than just their mother, them as more than just my children. We're still figuring out what that means, what we are to each other now, but at least we're figuring it out with open doors. And that, I think, is enough. Thank you for listening to my story, and thank you for being here.